The silence that fell over the Gilded Spoon, London's most exclusive restaurant, was so thick it seemed to have weight. Conversation ceased, cutlery froze in mid-air, and dozens of eyes fixed on the small space between the tables. 10-year-old Clara Sterling was visibly shaking. Her legs, trapped in metal braces, wavered as she reached out to Samuel Hayes, the restaurant's only black waiter. The live jazz trio had just begun a soft improvisational melody, and the girl's impulse to ask someone to dance came without warning. "Sir, control your daughter." Manageress Isabella's sharp voice cut through the silence. "That's inappropriate." Eleanor Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries and one of the wealthiest women in the country, swallowed hard. It was the first time she had taken Clara out to dinner in public since the accident that had partially paralyzed her legs 2 years earlier. "Clara, sit down," the order came, low but firm. Samuel remained motionless, his gaze shifting between the manageress, the billionaire, and the girl. In his 5 years working there, he had learned to become invisible, especially to customers like Eleanor Sterling, whose foundation had once briefly dismissed a proposal from a community project he co-founded. "Ms. Isabella, I'm leaving. My shift is over." His voice sounded calm as he removed his crisp white jacket. To everyone's amazement, he smiled at Clara and took her hand. "Can't dance in a jacket, can I?" Eleanor stood up abruptly. "What do you think you're doing?" Samuel held her gaze. "I'm accepting an invitation, ma'am." Before anyone could interfere, Clara took a hesitant step forward. Her foot dragged painfully across the floor, and the metal of her braces screeched. But Samuel didn't try to guide her. He simply adjusted his own pace. "He's getting fired tomorrow," whispered a man. Eleanor watched, paralyzed. A sudden memory struck her: Christopher, her late husband, dancing with Clara. "It's about connection," he had said. As Samuel followed Clara's clumsy steps, fear gave way to intense concentration in the girl's eyes. Shame gave way to shy pride. For the first time since the accident, she wasn't being guided. She was leading. "Ms. Sterling," the manageress's voice interrupted. "I assure you this will never happen again." Eleanor didn't respond. Clara's smile, however, was the only sound that echoed in Eleanor's mind. Samuel led the girl back to the table after 3 dance steps. "Thank you for asking me out," he said formally. "It was an honor." When he turned to leave, Eleanor stopped him. "Wait." Her voice sounded different. "What's your full name?" "Samuel Hayes, ma'am." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Samuel Hayes," she repeated. Then she took a card from her jacket and held it out. "My office tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. The entire restaurant held its breath. Samuel accepted the card without showing emotion, but his hand trembled slightly. "Mom," Clara called as he walked away. "Why did you do that?" The question hung in the air. Eleanor watched her daughter and for a brief moment saw a complete human being whose wants and needs she had systematically ignored. As dinner proceeded, no one noticed Samuel's calm determination as he left, contrasting with the storm brewing in Eleanor Sterling's eyes. If this story about dignity and transformation is already touching your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow how a simple gesture of respect can spark a silent revolution capable of transforming lives forever. The lobby of Sterling House sparkled. Samuel Hayes felt out of place in his best outfit. "Samuel Hayes to see Ms. Sterling," he told the receptionist. "18th floor. Mr. Jenkins will see you." In the elevator, Samuel took a deep breath. It wasn't fear he felt. It was quiet determination. Mr. Jenkins, a man in his 40s, led him. "Ms. Sterling is in a conference call. Please follow me." As he walked through the mirrored hallways, Samuel felt curious stares. A black man escorted through executive offices was rare. "She had you fired, didn't she?" Jenkins asked suddenly in a waiting room. "It happens. Powerful clients call and people like you lose their jobs. Employees who don't know their place." Samuel smiled, not amused. "And where exactly would that be?" Before Jenkins could answer, his phone rang. "She'll see you now." Eleanor Sterling's office took up half the floor. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, London looked like her personal property. "Ms. Sterling," Samuel greeted her. Eleanor turned, a mask of control. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming." She pointed to a chair. The silence was calculated. "Do you have a background?" Eleanor asked. "Education? College?" Samuel kept his gaze steady. "Bachelor's degree in child psychology from UCL, incomplete master's degree in adaptive movement therapies." Something flashed across Eleanor's face. "And you work as a waiter?" "I work 3 jobs. The restaurant, a charity shop, and as a support worker." Eleanor picked up a folder. "I did some research on you. I wanted to understand who the person was who," she hesitated, "danced with my daughter." She opened the folder, revealing photos of a community center, Kinetic Strides, which he co-founded. Samuel sat up straighter. "I co-founded it with my brother, Kai, a movement program for children with physical disabilities." Eleanor leafed through documents. "Which is now about to close due to lack of funding." Samuel showed no surprise. "I didn't come here to ask you for money." "Then why did you come?" "Because you invited me." Eleanor laughed softly. "Fair enough." She stood up. "I want you to work for me." Samuel blinked. "As a waiter in your house?" Eleanor's face hardened. "As a therapeutic companion for Clara." Her daughter's name seemed difficult for her to say. Samuel noticed her eyes drift to a photo, a smiling man holding a baby. "I have the best specialists," Eleanor continued, "but what you did yesterday," she paused. "It was just a dance. It was the first time I've seen her smile since the accident." The admission was painful. "I don't want a dancer for my daughter. I want someone who can do what you did. Follow, not lead." Samuel studied the woman. Beneath the power, he saw a desperate, lost mother. "I can pay you 5 times what you're making now." Samuel stood up. "No." Eleanor looked shocked. "I don't work for people who see only my color or social class before competence," he explained. "And I don't work for people who try to buy solutions to emotional problems, especially after their foundation reviewed and dismissed my methodologies years ago." Eleanor's face flushed. Samuel had come prepared. "You're turning down an offer that would solve your financial problems out of pride?" "Out of dignity," Samuel corrected, "and because your daughter deserves more than someone hired to pretend to care." He walked to the door, then paused. "Clara doesn't need more experts. She needs space to lead her own life." "You don't know my daughter." "No," Samuel agreed, "but I know people like her. People whose physical limitations are nothing compared to the invisible cages we build around them." He took a card from his wallet and placed it on the table. "Kinetic Strides classes are on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4:00 p.m. If you'd like to bring Clara, the first class is free." As Samuel left, he passed Mr. Jenkins, who had obviously been listening. "You just turned down an offer from Eleanor Sterling," he whispered. "Are you crazy?" Samuel smiled. "Maybe, but I'd rather be crazy than be property." The following Wednesday, Samuel was at the community center reception when Kai, his brother, came running up. "There's a Rolls-Royce parked outside," he whispered nervously, "and you won't believe who's inside." Through the window, Samuel saw the car. Clara was in the back seat. Eleanor remained in the driver's seat. "She's not coming in," Kai predicted. Women like her don't come to places like this. Samuel smiled. Don't underestimate a determined daughter. As they watched, the car door opened. Clara got out. Then Eleanor got out too. She looked out of place in her casual clothes, still screaming privilege. I told you she'd come, Samuel murmured. Kai stared. What did you do? Samuel didn't answer, but his eyes sparkled. In his apartment was a notebook filled with notes about children like Clara and women like Eleanor Sterling, years of observation, research, and a plan that began with a dance. Eleanor Sterling didn't know that Samuel Hayes wasn't just a waiter. He was a man with a mission, and her empire of isolation was about to face its greatest challenge, the truth that some lessons cannot be bought. They must be lived. Kinetic Strides operated out of an old community warehouse. Handmade posters decorated the walls. When Eleanor and Clara entered, children with mobility devices practiced movements. Miss Sterling, Samuel approached. Welcome. Clara watched the children in awe. It looks chaotic, Eleanor commented. There is structure, Samuel replied. It's just not the one you recognize. He turned to Clara. Would you like to join in? The girl nodded. Go on, Eleanor said tensely. I'll be right here. As Samuel guided Clara, Kai offered Eleanor a chair. The first day is always the hardest, he commented, for the parents. This isn't therapy, Eleanor argued. I hired the best rehabilitation specialists. And how has that been working for Clara? Kai asked gently. The studio door opened and an older man entered, leaning on an ornate cane. Dr. Alex Mercer, Kai whispered. Neuroscientist specializing in brain plasticity, retired from Oxford. Dr. Mercer greeted children before noticing Eleanor. Ms. Sterling, you've rejected my research proposal 3 times, he stated. Dr. Mercer, I didn't expect to see you here, Eleanor replied. I oversee the research program here, he explained. Eleanor frowned. I thought this was just a community dance class. Samuel returned. Kinetic Strides is a pilot motor rehabilitation program based on movement autonomy, he explained. We integrate adaptive dance with neuroscientific principles. Why do you work as a waiter if you lead a research program? Eleanor asked. Because we don't have adequate funding yet, and because people like you rejected us 3 times. The penny dropped. You were Dr. Mercer's assistant, Eleanor concluded. Dr. Mercer corrected. Samuel has an incomplete master's degree because he had to leave college to take care of his family, but his theoretical work is groundbreaking, and he was my lead researcher on those proposals you dismissed. You knew who I was at the restaurant? Eleanor asked. From the moment you walked in, Samuel confirmed. And when Clara got up to dance, I recognized the opportunity to show, not tell. Was it staged? The dance, absolutely not. Clara chose to get up, I chose to follow. A group of reporters entered, and Eleanor immediately tensed. What's this? Part 2 of the plan, Samuel smiled. Kai showed Eleanor a newly published article. Revolutionary motor rehabilitation methodology shows promising results. We've published our first results today, Dr. Mercer explained, and we invited the press. You used my daughter for a public relations stunt, Eleanor said, voice pure ice. Samuel led her into a side room with photos of children. On the last wall was an empty frame. What's that? He asked. Our future. The full rehabilitation center we could build. 500 children a year instead of 50. You orchestrated all this, Eleanor muttered. The dance, the meeting, bringing me here on press day? I saw an opportunity. 4 months ago, when you canceled our meeting, I promised myself I'd fight for this. And away, Eleanor. Kai interrupted. It's Clara. They rushed back. Clara was in the center of the room, surrounded by other children. Someone had turned off the music. The girl had removed one of her braces and was trying to balance on one support. "Clara!" Eleanor started forward, but Samuel stopped her. "Wait," he whispered. "Watch." Clara took a deep breath, focused. Then, to everyone's amazement, she took a complete step without full support. It was small, shaky, but entirely hers. The children cheered, and camera flashes went off. Eleanor's face, usually composed, was now exposed, tears glistening. "That's why we created kinetic strides," Samuel said softly. "It's not about perfect steps, it's about first steps on your own." Eleanor watched her daughter not as a problem, but as a complete person discovering her own strength. "This could have been done without manipulating me," she said. "It could have been if you had answered our calls or read our proposals 3 times. The reporters noticed Eleanor. Clara, oblivious, continued practicing. Eleanor Sterling was cornered. She faced 2 options: withdraw in anger, confirming her reputation as cold and calculating, or embrace the moment her daughter had created. Eleanor found herself in unfamiliar territory. Her gaze shifted between her smiling daughter and the reporters. Humility was not a virtue in her vocabulary, but seeing Clara's transformation, something inside her began to break. The orchestra of power and privilege she was accustomed to now played a different tune. Eleanor Sterling faced the reporters. Her daughter had just taken a step, and Samuel Hayes had skillfully led her to this moment. "Ms. Sterling," a reporter approached, "could you comment on your presence at Kinetic Strides? Is it true your foundation rejected funding for this program?" Eleanor glanced at Clara. Then, to everyone's surprise, she smiled. "You know what's hardest for someone in my position?" Eleanor addressed the reporter, admitting, "When we're wrong." A stunned silence filled the room. The Sterling Foundation is pleased to announce a commitment to fully fund Kinetic Strides for the next 5 years and to build a permanent rehabilitation center. Based on the methodology developed by Dr. Mercer and Mr. Hayes, camera flashes exploded. Kai let out a cry of surprise. "On one condition," she added, watching Samuel tense, "that Mr. Hayes retain complete autonomy over the program and its methodology. No corporate interference because," she continued, looking directly at Samuel, "it's clear that true leadership here lies in following." 3 months later, bulldozers were clearing ground for the new Kinetic Strides Rehabilitation Center. It wasn't the most luxurious project, but it was the most innovative, designed with input from children and families. Samuel supervised construction frequently. Clara showed up regularly, and to staff's surprise, Eleanor Sterling also showed up, silently observing. "I never thought you'd actually show up at board meetings," Samuel commented. "I never thought I'd have to study neuroplasticity at 50, Eleanor replied, rubbing her tired eyes. A scientific article, marked with notes, lay before her. "But here we are." Samuel looked at her. "Is this part of your public penance, or do you really care?" Clara asked to have her second brace removed last week. Her previous physical therapist said that would be impossible for at least 2 years. Samuel smiled. "But you fired her, remember? Because you told me she was wrong." And she was. Samuel pointed to a photo of Clara balancing with one crutch. "She's progressing faster than any traditional medical prediction." "Why did you never accept my apology?" Eleanor asked suddenly. "Because you never apologized. You redirected resources, changed policies, funded our program. That's not an apology, it's compensation." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Fair." At the opening ceremony, 6 months later, the contrast with the restaurant night couldn't have been greater. The huge adaptive space was filled with children. In the center, Clara, now wearing only a lightweight brace, led a choreographed routine. Her movements flowed with confidence. Eleanor watched from a distance. "She doesn't need you to hold her anymore," Samuel said. "No," Eleanor agreed, "but she still needs me to be around. Crucial difference." Eleanor turned to him. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "Exactly. For teaching me to follow." A reporter approached Miss Sterling. "How does it feel to see your daughter's progress?" Eleanor looked at Clara, who was helping a younger boy. "Proud, not of what she's overcome, but of what she's created for others." "And what's been the biggest lesson you've learned?" Eleanor Sterling, known for her financial empire, looked into the camera. "The true leaders aren't those who guide others down the path they believe is right, but those who have the courage to follow when someone shows them a better way." A year later, Kinetic Strides expanded to 3 new cities. Samuel received the Pediatric Rehabilitation Innovation Award. Clara, now using a light cane on difficult days, enrolled in regular school and became a youth spokesperson. Eleanor learned the hardest and most valuable lesson. True power lies not in controlling every move, but in knowing when to step back and let others lead. In a world where powerful people rarely change, and those without power often remain in the shadows, the story of Eleanor, Samuel, and Clara reminds us that true transformation occurs when we cross invisible boundaries. When a billionaire learns from a waiter. When a mother follows in her daughter's footsteps. If this story about how a simple gesture of dignity changed lives forever touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Because we believe that the most profound revolutions don't start with grand manifestos or billion-dollar fortunes. They start when someone has the courage to take an authentic first step and someone else has the wisdom to follow.